Hello, welcome to the Birth Words Podcast, episode number 11.
You're listening to the Birth Words Podcast. Utah-based birth doula and applied linguistics scholar Sarah Pixton digs into the language of pregnancy and birth to help expectant women claim their power as life-giving agents engaged in a praiseworthy work. This podcast aims to promote positive birth paradigms and is not intended as medical advice.
Welcome. I'm so excited. This episode, I have special guests here from the Vbac link, Julie Francom and Meagan Heaton. So I'm so excited to talk to them about their experiences and their insights about the role that language plays specifically for women who are preparing for Vbacs. So I'm going to start out with a more personal question. And Meagan, do you want to go first? The question is Great. And Meagan, you've had one Vbac, right?
Yes.
2 cesareans and then 1 Vbac, if I remember correctly, because I stalk you online.
That is correct.
Okay. And I'm in the middle of your awesome Vbac doula training course, which I think is why that was on my mind. But anyway, so going into your personal Vbac experience, can you remember any words that you used or that others used that helped to frame the experience for you?
Yeah, my Vbac was interesting because I didn't have a lot of support where I hoped to get the support. And so my cute cousin, she was pregnant as well with me, and she just like threw words out at me all the time. It was just like reminders, gentle reminders of like, you can do this. You're not broken, because I started believing that after so long, after, my doctor and so many doctors told me like, yeah, it's probably not a good idea that you do this. I don't think you could do this. And so, just that you can do this and have faith. Like I come from a faithful background. And so just reminding myself of that, like it really framed everything, and something that I didn't even know would affect me the way it did was my husband during my Vbac. I was in labor. I had been in labor at this point for like 38 hours. It was so long and I was so exhausted. And I honestly was like, in my head, I was like, they're going to transfer me. I'm going to have a C-section. Like I was just like going in my head. And he looked at me, and I think he could see it happening. And he looked at me and said, I am not scared. You have got this. And I was like, he's not scared. So like, if he's not scared, I shouldn't be scared. Like, I've got this, And so that for the rest of the time, like, I'm not scared. I've got this. I'm not scared. I've got this. Like those really like impacted the rest of those hours of my birth.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I think obviously that was huge. And one of the things I like about, there are lots of different theories in linguistics that I study in my classes and stuff. And some of them I'm like, I don't think I'm going to hold on to that theory. But something that I do hold on to, and there are many that I do hold on to, but one is that our language doesn't necessarily like reflect our experiences. Some people have theorized or believe that language reflects reality and reflects our experiences. But in a more powerful sense, it actually like creates our experiences and creates our reality. And I think that's a really good example of by him saying,
oh my gosh, yes,
I'm not scared. You've got this, or you can do this. Sorry, I forgot the exact words.
Both of them. Well, because my cousin I was like, you can do this, you can do this. And my husband, I'm not scared. And so, yeah. And I love that you say that, like something that I did a lot during my journey is I wrote down like the negative thing. I actually wrote them down, like what I was thinking. And then I just like looked at them and it was like, why are you even believing this? Like, and I like picked them apart, and then I just like scribbled them out until the paper wasn't even paper anymore, because it like created a hole, and then I burned them. And like, truly, like that to me, like those words didn't stick with me, and they didn't have to be me because I was told that in my op report. I was told that from doctors. That didn't have to be me. I believed, and this is one of my favorite affirmations, and it's on our affirmation cards that we provide online too, but like, she believed she could and she did. And like, that was true. Like, I believed that I could and I did. And so, yeah, I love that. I love that point that you just said.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. I could go on forever about this, but let's switch to Julie's turn, going into your personal VBAC experience. And there were 2 for you, right?
I've had 3.
Oh,
yeah,
3?
I've had 3
Yeah.
VBAC.
There we go.
Great. So any of the 3, what words from yourself or others helped to frame your experiences?
Oh my goodness. I too could talk for a very long time. So I made some little notes. I'm going to try and be very brief, but I think for my first VBAC, the biggest thing was just trust. I think the word trust, like trust the process, trust your body, trust your baby, trust that you are making the right decisions, trust that your care providers, trust your birth team, trust was just kind of like at the core of what I needed to help sustain me through the pregnancy and the birth. And there were a few people that were close to me that didn't have the confidence in me or in my birth choices. And I'm trying to say this in the most polite way, I guess. But like, I remember my mom who won't listen to this podcast because she doesn't I don't even think she still knows what a podcast is, even though we have a podcast. But I remember, because I chose to have a VBAC at home with a very, highly qualified midwife, and I was very comfortable with that choice. And a lot of people weren't. And I remember inviting my mom to my birth and her telling me that she didn't want to come and hear me scream because I was in so much pain because I wasn't at a hospital and couldn't get an epidural. And that really stung me because I felt like my mom was on the more supportive side. And so I just kind of had to block that out and remind myself that I was ready, that I was making decisions, and the right decisions, and trust in myself and my ability to have the right amount of knowledge in order to guide the process, but also to trust in my intuition that I too, with Meagan, wear the same faith, and I had the trust in my intuition and in our Heavenly Father, our God, to warn me if there was something that was going to be wrong. And so trust was a big thing. And also like an anchor. I know that it's more like a symbol than a word, but just being anchored in my choices, anchored in my family, my husband, and my birth team, and just really grounding for me and helped guide me along the way. So I made sure to keep a few choice people very, very close to me, and the rest of the people who wanted to intervene or try and give me their opinions, I kind of kept them and their opinions at a distance so that it couldn't affect me. And I also did a fear release like Meagan, except I didn't scribble the words out, although I'm really kind of digging that for my clients right now. Meagan, I don't think I knew that you did the scribbling thing, which is kind of fun that I like new things about you.
Yeah, and you do it so hard. You just scribble it and you get all of your negative energy until there's just no paper left. There's nothing.
I love it. Because I have clients write down their fears and burn them, and writing them down gets them out, and then the burning creates this dopamine response in the brain that literally helps process through those fears and those negative feelings. So I love that. And I think that was a big, important part of me getting ready. And then for my third and fourth VBAC, honestly, I don't know that there was a particular word or anything. I just knew I could do it. And so I had the confidence and I had the trust. And so I think it was probably the same energy carrying me through those next 2 births that I had worked so hard to gain with my first VBAC.
Thank you for sharing. I think that it's important that both of you talked about that you encountered positive and negative words, ideas, frameworks, whatever, and that you consciously distance yourself from the negative ones, whether it's scribbling and burning, or the way that you talked about needing to block out your mom's less supportive comments, that you chose the other words and frameworks that were positive, that were going to help you through it. And like that had to be a conscious choice. I think that's an important point.
Yeah. And, I think it's important to note, both for Meagan and I, that like we don't think our family or friends were trying to like hurt us or be mean necessarily, but there's just so much misinformation out there about VBAC and birthing after cesarean, and people are scared and they're afraid, and they want to keep us safe because they love us so much, but that misinformation leads them to give us those insensitive comments, not out of hate or hurt or disrespect, but out of love and to help. But because of all, like I said, because of all of the conflicting information out there about VBAC, people just don't know. And so they're trying to help out of love, which kind of makes it better, but it also kind of makes it worse, especially when they're not willing to take the time to learn or help educate themselves so that they can be on the same page as you.
Yeah, I know I'm one of many, many very grateful women that you guys are doing the work to help make that information accessible to so many more people, so that fear and like, so that people can have access to the truth and can dissipate their fear with that. So thank you. Okay, let's move on so that we don't keep our listeners for hours and hours, although I'd kind of like to do that sometime. We could do a 3-hour version of this.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Yeah, let's schedule that. So my next question is, so you're both doulas in your work supporting VBAC clients, and as you've helped parents prepare for VBACs through your courses, online and in person, through all of those things that you do at the VBAC link, what role has language played? And specifically, are there any terms or language frameworks that you encourage your clients or the students that you're teaching to embrace or to avoid?
Yeah, Meagan knows I have strong opinions about some of this stuff, so I think I'll just take it away for a minute. First of all, I think, oh my goodness. First of all, I just want to say it's a very individual experience, and something that might trigger one person might not trigger another, and something that might comfort another, one person might not comfort another. And so the way I'm going to speak now is just what we've noticed generally, and in the ways that we help educate people. So I don't want to like make a blanket statement for everybody's feelings, but these are just like, the more I guess popular opinions, if you could call it that. But the first thing I want to talk about is the term TOLAC. A lot of people don't know what the term TOLAC means, and it's just TOLAC for trial of labor after cesarean. And oh my gosh, it's so hard because when you're working so hard for vaginal birth after cesarean, you don't want anyone telling you you can try. You want to be told, I can and I will. Like Meagan, she believed she could, so she did. Those are like the definitive and strong things that we hold on to as birthing parents, so that we can gain that confidence and attitude and create our birth space and envision all of that. And so the word trial in trial of labor after cesarean can be very defeating and sometimes offensive when a provider uses that term. And so one of the things that we try to do at the very beginning of our course is address that term, TOLAC. It's a medical term. It is like literally means before your VBAC. So we try and help women reframe the word try into, it's just like part A, it's the before part of my journey. And then after the baby has come out of my vagina, I have had a VBAC. And so sometimes there's that disconnect there between the word try. And we don't ever want to tell someone, Meagan, what she didn't say is that she interviewed 12 providers. Is it right? 12, Meagan? Mm-hmm. And some of them told her she couldn't ever fit a baby through her pelvis. And some said they would let her try. They would let her try. And nobody wants to be told they can try. And so that word's a little bit of a trigger, but because it is a medical term and women are going to hear it, we want to help mentally prepare them for that and help them translate it into a positive, like, oh, it's just part A. It's just the beginning of my journey. It's just the part of labor. And sometimes in the birth space, nurses, I've had a nurse insist that a client be called a TOLAC and not a VBAC. And I remember her saying something, and I'm like, oh, is that because she's a VBAC? And she looked me dead in the eyes and says, she's a TOLAC. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah, I remember. Because you don't ever want to be confrontational with the nurses. So that's one term that very first comes to my mind in addressing in our courses and with doulas, and just generally because you're going to encounter it, and we don't want it to trigger or discourage somebody. The second term that I want to talk about, Meagan, I'm not really going to try hard not to get on a soapbox here. Meagan's probably just like, I should even feel her sending her, don't get on the soapbox, Julie, vibes to me.
No. It's important. This is important. These things are really effective. Yeah.
Yes. So the term belly birth, there's been a big push lately from people to use the term belly birth instead of cesarean or C-section. And I, as a mom who has had a C-section, I despise that term. That I'm using this strong words, right? This is all about words. I hate that term, belly birth. And I was like, I cannot be the only one that just hates this word. And so we asked a bunch of our audience, we have thousands of followers on Facebook and Instagram, and we asked them one day, like, how do you feel about the term? And everybody who has had a C-section replied that they also do not like the term, that it makes their birth feel like discredited. It was a major abdominal surgery, and so trying to desensitize that takes away from their feelings or their trauma, and it kind of invalidates the birth experience. And I want to take it a step further and just say that women, especially women, 99% of cesareans are unplanned cesareans. And that's 99%. That's an actual fact. And what that means is 99% of women did not know that this was coming. And I would say that the majority of them would have been blindsided by that experience and are having a hard time wrapping their minds around the fact that they actually gave birth. I know, like, even still to this day, my first son, I have a hard time using the word birth at all when referring to his birth. I remember in our first version of my podcast episode where I shared my story, I was like, well, they cut him out of me pretty quick. I was like, sounded like a little country hick, cut him out pretty quick, but that he was removed from me. He wasn't born. He was taken from me. And I don't say that to impose my views on anybody else, but that's how I felt. And having someone calling it a belly birth or like, oh, it's a belly birth. So, it really takes away from like the severity of the situation. And I think that, we talk about this a little bit in our courses. I think that forcing the term into mainstream usage really will not do any good to help decrease the overall cesarean rate in the United States. Because as you know, this whole podcast is about the way we speak about things, impacts the way we feel about things, which impacts the way we act about things. Mm-hmm. And if we're turning a major abdominal surgery and calling it a belly birth or a surgical birth or an abdominal birth, it's softening it and it's lessening the impact that it makes on our overall birth culture and on these individual women's lives. And so that would be the biggest thing. I always say, if I had a client that would prefer the term belly birth when referring to her cesarean, I would use the term belly birth when I am talking with her. But I've never met a woman that wants her birth to be called a belly birth. Meagan doesn't mind the term, but
so it's not that I mind it. It's just it doesn't affect me.
Yeah, it doesn't bug you like it bugs me. And so to that, like, I think it's important to recognize that everybody is going to be different, but I would never walk into talking to somebody and calling their cesarean birth a belly birth, because most of these women, especially the women we're helping and educating that are probably learning that their cesarean what could have been unnecessary, referring to it and trying to soften it is hurtful and harmful. It's not only to them, but I feel like to our overall birth culture. And so that would be my like negative like please don't use this word belly birth. And I find that the people that are mostly trying to use the word belly birth are doulas and birth workers who have not had a cesarean. They are trying to make it better for the people who have gone through it when they can't necessarily feel what emotions are brought up by the language that's used surrounding that.
They're softening it. They're just trying to soften it.
Yeah, and make it feel better, but it's not that. But I feel like you know it's kind counterproductive to that. But I do have a positive experience to share about language that I use with clients. But before I just talk for 20 minutes myself, I wanted to just give Meagan a turn.
No, my biggest one is that the try, and like Julie said, like when I was going through my experience looking for a truly supportive provider, I needed someone to tell me, I believe in you. We can do this together. You can do this. Not, well, I mean, if you were my sister-in-law or if you were my wife, I probably would suggest scheduling a C-section, but you can try. I'll support you. Those types of things. And that's not just a word, but it's, it's a comparing me to someone that I don't even know and who I'm not. That really affected me in a frustrating way, but just the you can try. That just annoys me. Like, I'm not trying, I'm doing this. Yeah. I mean, even if it ends in a cesarean, that doesn't mean I didn't do it. Like, I was still laboring. I was still doing everything I could to bring this baby. And to me, I just wasn't trying. I wasn't just trying. I was doing it. Like, I was doing everything in my possible, my power that I could do this. And it just frustrates me. So yeah, I think just the you can try is probably the biggest trigger word for me personally. And I have also seen it affect my clients as well.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah. No, that's a huge thing. And success and failure, like a successful, like a failed collapse or that's a failed trial of labor, because everybody's a trial of labor. Like, there's a word called TOL, T-O-L. It's like an abbreviation, just a medical term. Trial of labor. Even a first-time mom is a trial of labor. But like failed trial of labor, we encourage our clients and our students to get their operative reports and actually find what was written in them, because that can help them address their upcoming birth and address what their current providers are seeing about their previous birth. And, the word success or failure is a huge one.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I wanted to go on to just something else too. I think a lot of times, big baby is such a kind of be like a fear-inducing word for Vbac. And I just wanted to share a short story about a client of mine. I like to give my clients homework. If you be advised, if you are clients of mine, you're going to get some homework. And one of my clients I had who just had a Vbac after 3 C-sections, and it's just incredible. I just love this woman to death. But I gave her homework because I found that the language she was using when she was referring to her upcoming birth was often negative. So she would say, "Oh, we already know this baby is too big. I'm not sure. I've never had a vaginal birth before, so I'm scared about the baby coming out of my vagina. I'm not sure I know how to do this," and things like that. And so I gave her homework. The first thing was, first of all, stop speaking negatively about your birth. Any words that come out of your mouth, turn them into a positive. So one of the biggest things was big baby. She's like, my baby, and we already know this baby's going to be big. My doctor thinks my baby's going to be big. And so I would tell her, like, for a big baby to say, my baby's going to be the perfect size. We already know my baby's going to be the perfect size. And so I would remind her in our conversations through text messages, on Facebook forums, when I would see her comments like, "Oh yeah, my baby's probably going to be big," I would comment and say, "Oh, your baby's the perfect size." To remind her, because there's so many women whose C-sections were because their baby was so big or their head wouldn't fit, or, there's so many things, but the big baby phrase can be so fear-inducing. And so guess what? Her baby was the perfect size. Her baby was 7 pounds, 10 ounces, and she was perfect size baby. And so I wanted to kind of touch on the whole big baby term too. And babies come the perfect size.
Yeah. My perfect size baby was like the most empowering, beautiful experience of my life. And he was 9 pounds, 6 ounces. So, but he was the perfect size because that's the size he was. And he was perfect.
The exact size he needed to be. And it is very, very rare for the actual size of the baby to impact a birth outcome. More likely it's mother's positioning or to an induction that is too soon. The body's not ready. There's so many things that play into what makes the baby fit or not fit, and very few of them have to do with how large the baby actually is. Unless, of course, in circumstances like gestational diabetes and things like that. But that's a whole nother subject.
All right, I'm going to move on to another question. And it is, as you have encountered care providers that are Vbac supportive versus Vbac tolerant versus Vbac opposed, do you find that there are terms or words that define each group? Do they sort of each speak a different dialect?
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to like the try thing, like I feel like, a truly supportive provider that has full faith in this mom. And you know what, even if they don't, like, even if they question, like, I feel like the truly supportive ones, like, build the client up, like, because, with Tolac, you never know what's going to happen, but you also never know what's going to happen with any mom. Like Julie said, like, no, not a lot of women expect to have a cesarean. And so, just the overall energy with some of these providers who are not supportive or completely intolerant. I had a client have a doctor tell her, well, you're going to have to bring me a lot of chocolate for me to let you do this. And like that right away, I was like, doesn't really sound supportive. like not really supportive at all. Or like Julie said, like they start bringing up, it's not necessarily certain words, it's just certain situations, like the big baby or low fluid or
you're so petite.
You're so petite, or your cervix. Like I've been seeing this in our Vbac Link community over and over and over again. And I was like, what is going on with measuring the cervix? I had never had my cervix measured and was told, well, you have a short cervix, so you probably can't be back. Like never told that. And like just placing little tiny seeds of doubt in these women's mind. And that is where I don't feel like these situations or these doctors are supportive. And instead of, when I would go into my provider, like I would get a big hug and be like, how are you doing this week? Is there anything we need to work through? Like that was a complete difference. It was like, well, your cervix is looking a little short, and
what does that even mean?
I know, like that these babies are going to be preterm and she can't be back. And I'm just like, what in the heck? And, and I just feel like there's little things, and, we have providers that we love and trust, and they'll say things like, you'll know a provider is not supportive when they throw little things that don't make sense into the mix. Yep. And just little things to place doubt. So, my advice is, if you're receiving any sort of doubt, whatever word that you receive that brings your body feeling, your mind feeling doubt, that is a good way to kind of figure out if that provider is really supportive or not. Or like you said, like tolerant, some are supportive, but they're really not supportive, they're tolerant.
Right.
So yeah, like just, I would say doubt. And that's my word that I'm giving to people as check into it. Like if you're feeling doubt, if you're having a provider give you doubt, that's a red flag.
Absolutely.
I hope
it's
that
interesting.
Sort of made sense.
And for sure.
No, it was great. It's funny because I made a little list here of, it really piqued my curiosity. I don't know if that's the right word choices or not while we're on a birth words podcast, but that you use the word dialect. Like what dialect? Like what does that mean? So I wanted to like break it down, and so I was like taking some notes before this call, and it's just right in line with what Meagan said. So I wanted to kind of go over like the tone, because there's not always words, specific words, but the way they speak about Vbac. is such a big indication. And so I would put like under my Vbac supportive list, I would say they have like very few rules. They treat you just like a first time mom, or like Dr. Stu says, he's like, there's one thing you have to do for Vbac. We love Dr. Stewart Fishbein in California. He said, it's just nothing. You just have to do nothing. You just have to let it happen, you know? And so they have few rules. They don't have, you're not on a timeline, those types of things. Another thing is, they say you're a good candidate. They review your past birth with you and talk about those things and don't put a whole lot of weight in how your last birth ended compared to how this birth might end. And then they have confidence in you that you can do it. I had a client who had a doctor that says, well, at this point, I think your chances for Vbac are probably only about 10 to 15%, which would be a huge red flag, first of all. But then it wasn't a red flag because immediately after that, he said, but if you want to proceed, I will go ahead and support you in your decision. And so I think that advising, but then allowing a woman to make the choice for their own birth is very indicative of a Vbac supportive provider. And when you use the word Vbac tolerant, which is like, kind of like supportive if everything goes textbook. Meagan, like Meagan said, they use the big baby card. They say, oh, you're petite, you're so small. Your mom had all C-sections, so you probably will have to too. Or they have rules where they won't induce you. You have to go into labor by 40 weeks or else it's a C-section. Words like that. They rely a lot on the Vbac calculator, which, your percentage of success, and they put a lot of weight into that. That would say to me that a provider is more Vbac tolerant. And then as far as Vbac opposed, oh man, we have stories that we could tell for days. But like if your provider is telling you have a 75% chance of rupture because your C-section happened when you were 28 weeks pregnant or 30 weeks pregnant, like you have to have a C-section at 39 weeks, or you have a cervix of steel, you will never dilate on your own, or things like if you rupture, you and your baby will die. Those type of things would tell me that a provider is very Vbac opposed. Like they absolutely have no faith in you. They're not willing to give you a chance. They're recommending cesarean before your body is even at term. Like to me, that would indicate a provider is opposed to Vbac generally, and probably even vaginal birth, just generally.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
I have to cut us off here. Thank you so much for all of your insight and your answers, and everybody that's listening. I highly recommend that you search out the Vbac link. Can you tell us quickly how we can find your website and social media so that listeners can find you?
Yeah, we're just at thevbaclink.com, THEVBAC link.com. And we have a podcast where you can find on any podcast platform you listen to, or you can listen right from our website. We have how to Vbac prep courses for parents. We have a Vbac doula certification process for advanced doulas, doulas that need to take their education a little bit higher for Vbac. We have free downloadable content you can find right on our homepage. We are on Instagram as the Vbac link. We're on Facebook as the Vbac link. And we also have a really, really amazing community on Facebook called the Vbac Link community. What did I miss, Meagan? I feel like Meagan's always, we always keep each other on our toes. So what else? What did I miss?
No, that is seriously everything. We try to offer as much as we can. We've got blogs, we've got it all. So definitely check it out at the Vbaclink.com. Yeah, the blog has a lot of information on, how long can I go in between pregnancies before I go for a Vbac? Vbac after multiple C-section statistics, and the small pelvis and reasons for cesarean, and how to find a good provider. You name it, we've got it going for you. So definitely check it out at the Vbaclink.com.
And one other thing I wanted to mention really quickly is Meagan and I both respond personally to every message we get on Facebook, every message we get on Instagram, every email we receive. Our email is info@thevbaclink.com, or you can just fill out the contact form on our website. And so if you want to reach out or have a question or something, we welcome and we love connecting with people and helping people. And our whole mission is to just make birth after cesarean better. We just want to make it better for you. We want to make it better for your community, and we want to make it better for the United States and the world. We have big goals.
On the world, yeah. Internationally,
yes. Yeah. So we're shipping courses and doula certification training all over the world now. And so it's been really exciting to see it grow and to connect with so many people. So many of you that are listening here and are listening at the Vbac Link podcast. It's been a really exciting journey. So Sarah, thank you so much for having us. We love what you're doing. We love this podcast, and we think it's such an important topic, and we are so honored to have been a part of this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
it was so great to have you. Thanks.
Did words play an important role in your birth experience? If you're interested in sharing your story on the podcast, go to summitbirthutah.com/birthwords. If you're liking what you hear on the podcast, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen. For more resources about harnessing the power of words to benefit the birth experience, visit summitbirthutah.com/birthwords.